Welcome back, folks, to the second half hour of Business Buzz. We just had David from Voices.com. In the second half hour, we're proud to say we have Bonnie Stewart, who's the Vice President of CBIA. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. Before we get to you, though, we've got to take care of a little bit of housework here. We're going to read a commercial from one of our illustrious sponsors, and that is Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Deepwater is Farmington Valley's freshest seafood, or they have Farmington Valley's freshest seafood. They will work with you and your schedule. Call ahead, 860-676-9657, or fax in your order at 860-677-2281. Deepwater will set aside your order for pickup after work. They're open Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and even on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, I bet you're wondering what's on the menu. Sea scallops, fresh oysters, fish and chips, soup, bisque, chowders. If you're having a party, they've got paella for $12 and plus. A salad is all you need, made with spicy chicken, sausage, scallops, shrimps, and halibut. There's only one place for seafood in Farmington Valley, and that is Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Deepwater Seafood
Deepwater
of Avon. Anyway, thanks, folks. Bonnie, welcome. We appreciate you sitting through that first half hour. He was an interesting and inspiring young man.
Yes, it was very interesting.
Absolutely. And I was a little bit surprised because of how mature he sounded as a business person to find out that, darn it, he's only in his 30s. For at least this ancient one.
But he mentioned it, innovation. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And it was fun to see you acknowledge a Me Too in the reading of the Steve Jobs book, somewhat inspiring, at least for me, in reading, how this man, meeting Steve Jobs, of course, did all the things that he was able to accomplish in finding a great team.
Think different.
That's exactly right. So speaking of great teams, you've been at CBIA for almost 25 years now, right?
Yes, I have.
That's pretty amazing. And, though I don't know a ton about it, I do know some. The sense that I've gotten both from doing some homework and talking to different people is that that's one of the strengths of CBIA. There's a strong team effort that emanates from within. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We're very fortunate. We've got an incredible team. There's a great deal of longevity. We've got a lot of innovative people, which obviously makes a difference because if we're constantly thinking about new ways to help our members, the better off they'll be when we come up with something that's a home run for them. So we really try very hard to listen to their needs and respond appropriately. And one of the things that we do in response to that, obviously, is be very active in making sure that their voice is heard at the state capitol and the various state agencies.
So what would be the profile of the typical, if there is one, CBIA member?
That's what's really interesting. There isn't a typical CBIA member. One of the things I think that really lends us a great deal of opportunity on behalf of the business community is our diversity. We range from one-person shops to our largest employers in the state. We obviously pay close attention to manufacturers because we started off years ago, actually over 150, as the Connecticut Manufactorees Association, which tells you how long ago it was. So we've got a ton of manufacturers, but we also have the financial industry. We also have the corner retail store, et cetera. So we've got a great deal of diversity, both in terms of the type of companies that we represent, in terms of size, geographically, we cover all corners of the state, and the industries. And that's something that's a real plus for us because when you're putting together a team, a lot of times you want different people because somebody may look at something a little bit differently, and that may result in your home run.
No, we discussed in our pre-show prep that a high percentage of Business Buzz is listening and viewing audience are entrepreneurs in one stage or another of being an entrepreneur. Either they're already in business, they're contemplating, going into business, they're, and again, various stages. Right. Share with us some of the benefits for our listeners and viewers as to why they would consider becoming a member of CBIA.
When you're looking at the smaller companies, I think that one of the best things that we've got going at CBIA is our Human Resources Services Division. And what they do is answer our members' questions free of charge when it comes to best practices, compliance, a variety of different issues. So if you pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this problem right now, how should I deal with it? You can get the answer in terms of what you're required to do under the law, as well as what your competition may be doing, or various studies out there that show what you should be doing based on outcomes, results-based outcomes. So we've got a lot of great information along those routes, and that's something that I personally think is just an incredible benefit. Obviously, we advocate on behalf of our members on a regular basis before the state legislature, but we also work very closely with the state agencies, and that's very important because many of our members need to get permits from the Department of Environmental Protection, but may not be sure about how to go about that, or they may be looking to get a sales tax permit, and that's something that we can also give them some guidance on how to do. Or they may have a question about a new labor situation at their company, and whether we have the answer or not, we can work with them to get it by reaching out to people at the Department of Labor. So our advocacy efforts also help us in terms of guidance by helping members work their way through the process. That can be overwhelming a lot, especially when you reach an agency where all you get is a recording lately. It's nice to know who to call, what that direct number is, or what their email is, and be able to get a response in a timely manner. And that's what we're there to do. We're there to help them. We're their office and staff in Hartford.
So not to put you on the spot, but I might anyway. Is there a wonderful war story? I know in my business interactions, sometimes I can point to a client and say, we worked with such and such a client that had a similar situation. Do you have a wonderful war story that you can share where, the advocacy component of CBIA really kicked in and really made a difference for one of your members?
Yes, I do. If I didn't, I'd be in trouble
Okay.
after being there nearly 25 years. But we did have a member that had facilities in a number of states. And as you know, a lot of times compliance costs tend to be significant, more than a lot of people realize, especially people not in the business world. We had one company that had a payroll system that worked everywhere other than Connecticut, because our pay periods by law are a little bit different. If you're not paying somebody weekly, you actually have to get a waiver from the Department of Labor. You've got to get permission not to pay on that weekly basis. But everywhere else in the country that they had a facility, and they had a lot of them, they were able to pay weekly. They couldn't get an appointment with the person that they needed to at the Department of Labor. They didn't know who to call. They weren't getting return calls, and it was extremely expensive for them. They actually told us it was costing them roughly $1 million a year to have a different system for Connecticut.
Really?
So we were very fortunate. We just made an appointment with the labor commissioner and the person that was in charge of the wage and hour unit at the Department of Labor, and we brought in the member company, had the meeting, and at the end of it, they got the waiver that they needed. What they were seeking was very reasonable. They just didn't have that connect. And we were able to put the meeting together, and they got what they needed, and it reduced their costs by $1 million. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. That's a great story, too, and I'm glad I asked. So a question for you. How do members get involved? What's the process? What does it cost, if you don't mind sharing? Yeah, give us a little bit of information as to the nuts and bolts of any of our viewers deciding in this moment, or at least contemplating, we want to join CBIA. What do they need to go through?
The bulk of our members are Connecticut companies. So we do have some companies that are out of state, but that have some type of presence here. So Connecticut companies pay based on their payroll in Connecticut. Given the fact that the bulk of your listeners tend to be smaller businesses, I would say that a lot of them would actually be at the bottom of our due scale, which would be $250. So for $250, they get full membership. And the most any company pays is $27,000. We're actually relatively cheap compared to many associations. So you pay your $250 if you're a smaller employer, and you have access to our advocacy efforts, our assistance in terms of human resources issues, best practices, environmental practices. We send out a lot of emails to our members informing them about different things that are happening. But that's real important that they know what's happening, whether it be a new regulation that's been adopted, a case that's been decided that may impact their company, or an opportunity that may have arisen that they should be aware of so that they can take advantage of it.
So even at that $250 level, the member has access to, it sounds like, just about everything and anything that CBIA brings to the table.
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive. It definitely is. Now, Brian was kind enough to print out the Moving Beyond the Job session. I guess this is your government affairs program for 2012.
Yes, it
You
is.
want to tell us a little bit about that, just to get the ball rolling on this?
Sure. Every year we reach out to our members through various task forces and councils that we have that they can get involved in, or we put out, I should say, and we put out requests for ideas, and people can just contact one of the members of our lobbying team. We have different outreach programs as well. It's really our effort, big effort, to hear from the businesses what it is they may be concerned with, ideas they may have that could improve our situation, problems they may have where we need to switch the laws to make Connecticut more competitive or more desirable. And then we put together everything that they've given us and bring it to our board and say, okay, these are the measures that we're recommending we move forward on for the 2012 calendar year. And our board then makes the decision whether to go forward with it as is or not, or what the case may be. And what we have here in this Moving Beyond the Job session is our agenda for 2012. We could do more than this, but these are our priorities for the upcoming year.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, this was generated basically by you going to your members and saying what's important for you moving into 2012 and beyond.
Absolutely. Our members really guide us. They're the ones out there dealing with the situations on a daily basis. They're running their shops, answering the phones, trying to comply with the various laws, and we are totally dependent on them to let us know what they care about so that we can advocate on their behalf.
That's really interesting. Now, you have to know this. And once again, I guess I'm going to kind of sort of put you on the spot. But most business owners that I know, that I interact with, myself included in some ways, wouldn't be reticent to say that operating a business in Connecticut in the 21st century is a challenge, and are convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt that the state, anyway, does not make our lives any easier. And, I'm going to just stop. My own personal philosophy is, and it's similar to David, our previous guest, I'm going to stay focused in on the creative side. I'm going to stay focused in on the grateful side. And that really, is one of the reasons why my company is almost 30 years old, because my partner and I have really shared and believed in that philosophy. But yet, with that said, there's a prevailing wind or two or 20 that says, oh my God, what am I doing here in Connecticut? One, do you run into that? I'd be surprised if you didn't. And two, what do you do to combat that? I'm reading through this here, and it reads really well, but I wonder sometimes if it's really dealing with the reality of what the heck is going on in Connecticut.
What you've addressed is, or laid out, is definitely one of the challenges we face every day at CBIA. Business owners are very busy running their company and fighting to either stay alive or grow. And therefore, it's incumbent upon those of us at CBIA to make sure that we're reaching out, that we take the time to go and visit companies, to hold forums where we can hear their concerns or bug them on the telephone when we need to, because we've heard they've got a situation that we need more information on so that we can try to address it. So clearly, Connecticut companies feel that there are challenges to doing business in Connecticut. And I don't know that we've never not heard that. As long as I've been at CBIA, there's always been some issues.
And you've been kicking around for a while.
I have been, more than I'd like to admit. Okay. But having said that, we usually also find that a lot of companies have a great deal of positive things to say about Connecticut as well. So it's our job, again, to find out what it is that's really problematic so we can try to change that, because our goal is to make Connecticut's business climate one which encourages companies to invest in Connecticut, to be here in Connecticut, and to grow in Connecticut. Now, does anybody give us a silver bullet? Not that I know of. At least I haven't heard about it yet. I was actually out at the West Hartford Chamber this morning speaking to a group, and I kept on begging for them to send me bullets, because we would love a quick fix, but nobody has that. But does that mean that we can't do something to try to help? Absolutely not. And that's what our government affairs program is this year. We got some really great information from our members during the fall. The governor went out and did a tour. The Republican leaders went out and did a tour of businesses, and they came up with a jobs agenda. Is it something that turned the state around? Absolutely not. But it was a start. And it seems to me that it's really started to change the attitude at the Capitol. I think now, for the first time in quite some time, we have more legislators connecting jobs with businesses. Obviously, you can't have a job if you don't have a business, but we had a real disconnect for quite some time. My feeling is that that job session this past October was a springboard. We can take that and build upon that, move on that. So for those companies that are frustrated and just trying to get by, my recommendation is reach out to CBIA. We're out there trying to reach out to you. Touch base with us. Let us know what your problems are, so we can try to help. If you've got a recommendation on how to solve that problem, that's great. But even if you don't, raise your concerns with us, because we can try to come up with a solution. And we will work with the public officials, whether it be the administration or the legislators, to try to improve Connecticut. Because right now there seems to be, like I said, a change in attitude and more people understanding that for us to not only survive but to thrive, we need to do some things to turn our business climate around. And we've got some great people that are willing to work with us.
Well, you know what's interesting is you are the second person in about a week and a half that I've heard say in so many words what you just shared, specific to the current legislation. A friend of ours who's been on the show, a gentleman named Eric Knight. Eric is a rather accomplished individual, an inventor. The list of accomplishments go on and on. He's right now involved in an initiative with UConn and tied into the legislation and all about jobs and inspiring and motivating entrepreneurs to start businesses here. Now, I'm sharing that one to let you know that, again, you're the second person that has shared that with me. But my question is there an affinity, a connection between UConn and CBIA and some of the other schools in the area? How do you guys tie in with that?
We do work very closely with the schools in the area. CBIA is very fortunate to have an education foundation, which has been with CBIA longer than me. And they work very hard on everything through pre-K to postgraduate school. So depending on the needs of our members at any given time, we are working with various institutions or grade levels with the administration as a whole. One of our big efforts actually this year is going to be education reform, because we are hearing a lot from our members about the need for a skilled workforce, whether it's a student graduating from high school ready to enter the workforce or one who needs to go on to college. Are they prepared for that? So yes, we do work with those organizations on a regular basis. One of our big needs is to make sure that there's a connect between what the businesses need in terms of the skills that people are graduating with. So, for example, for a long time, engineers were greatly needed in the state. We found member companies needing engineers and not having enough in the state. So there was a real effort to work with the University of Hartford, the University of Connecticut, to get more students in those programs. And not only that, for a while we were very heavily involved in biopharma and making sure that we got the right students out of the graduate schools that we needed for our biopharmaceutical industry. So there would be a real problem if businesses weren't working with our educational institutions, because obviously we need a skilled workforce and people with the skills to, again, move on to higher education as well.
Well, and that's one of the concerns that Eric, and do you know Eric? Have you heard of him? Because if not, that'll be another person that I'd be glad to put you in touch with. I
That'd
think
be
the
great.
two of you would have a lot of things to discuss. But Eric shared with us in detail in another group that I belong to that a big concern for businesses here in the state is a workforce of graduates that are just making the decision early on, I'm going to leave Connecticut. I'm going to get my education here because there are great schools, but because I don't believe that the opportunities exist for me here in this state, I'm going to leave. What are your thoughts on that?
That's been a concern on the part of many for, unfortunately, quite a while, because we did see an exodus from Connecticut. One of the things that the legislators tried to put in place was a program to help people be able to purchase homes in Connecticut, those graduating from school here. Live Here, Work Here, I believe, is the name of the program, where people's tax dollars would actually, recent grads, would go into an account that they could use to purchase a home as opposed to going into the general fund, because our cost of living is so high. That's one of the things that we face here, not only with new graduates, but with companies that are trying to recruit workers or keep them here in the state. The cost of living is quite high. Having said that, You hear from people all the time, well, it's great if you already are married and you want to have kids, that kind of thing. But I think we've got some other opportunities as well. But it's something that we need to pay attention to. It's something that the telecommunications industry has tried to focus in on by making some of our urban areas Wi-Fi, looking into those things, because that's a big deal when, it's generational to a certain extent. But I think pretty much as we all become more tech aware and people are walking around with their iPads and their iPhones, etc., more of us want those Wi-Fi zones, and more of us want programs that we can participate in, whether it be the arts or sports, etc. So there is an effort on the part of many to try to improve the quality of life for the younger generation, those kids that are just graduating from school. And
But even us oldies, I mean, I can tell you as a business owner, when I go in to have my car serviced, and I'm going to sit there to wait to have it done, the fact that the dealership that I go to has Wi-Fi, I can't tell you how appreciative I am, because
right
I can
there with
sit.
you.
I'll stop and get my Starbucks coffee, and I'm sitting there, and I've got a mobile office, and I can function at a pretty high level.
Very
So
productive.
absolutely. So I mean, there's a whole lot of us, and business owners in general. Saturday has become another work day, so we have really one day for us for downtime. But no matter what I'm doing, I want to make sure that I can continue my level of productivity. So I think everybody, youngsters and us oldsters, are all on board with leveraging technology in every way we can.
Absolutely. Our biggest area in terms of our stumbling block really is going to be the cost of housing. And there's a number of groups looking at it, but unfortunately, you can't legislate a reduction in the cost of real estate. So I'm not sure that there's, again, a silver bullet there, but there has been a real effort in terms of smart growth to try to start putting living spaces above business spaces, and to align the transportation areas with those economic and housing opportunities. So hopefully we'll develop some more opportunities where smart growth is concerned. It's something the legislature's been looking at closely. It's something that businesses care a great deal about. They're always trying to find a place where they're along the transportation lines and where there's affordable housing. So it's something we're going to need to continue to look at and think outside the box.
So how does legislature look at you guys? Do they look at you as, oh my God, CBIA has just walked in the door, what are we going to do? Or thank God they're here, our partner has just come in to come to the rescue?
We get both.
Okay.
We definitely get both. I think that overall we're respected because we are credible. Whether you like what we have to say or not, we've always got the facts to back what we're saying. We make sure that we're 110% accurate. For a long time, though, I'll tell you, when I went up to the Capitol, it was always open arms. We had a lot of people that understood that connect between business and jobs, and that seemed to go away. Like I said before, there was a real disconnect on the part of many between the fact that they want their constituents employed, and you need businesses to do that. So businesses were viewed for quite a while as, black hats. I think that's changed, though. I shouldn't say changed. It started to change. And I really do believe in the last 6 months, I've started to see more of an awareness about the fact that Connecticut needs businesses. We need innovative people here. We need new ideas. We need people that are willing to invest in those ideas and put those businesses and jobs here in Connecticut. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to see more changes. Again, we're going to move beyond the job session, as our title of our government affairs program is, because that was the start. We have a lot more to do. In that session, we actually saw the legislature set aside more money for startup companies, set aside more money for small manufacturers.
So what took them so long? I mean, again, as a business owner here for 30 years, just shy of that. I mean, what I'm hearing is just a breath of fresh air, but there's another side of me that side of me asked the question I just did. What took them so long to wake up?
I think the crisis. I honestly believe, our CEO, John Rathgaber, constantly says, as other leaders have said before, that, with challenges come opportunities. And unfortunately, a lot of times you have to hit rock bottom. We've all heard that too. Well, I think the state was pretty close to it this past legislative session. And for the first time, you have people, I shouldn't say the first time in a long time, you have people that are unemployed and unemployed for a long time. I mean, let's face it, every single one of us knows multiple people that have been out of a job for more than 2 years now. That's a little bit scary.
It absolutely
And
is.
everyone's wondering, am I next? Well, obviously not everybody's next, but what can we do for those people that are unemployed? Well, what's the best thing to turn that around? A job. It's not changing the unemployment system or coming up with yet another program. It's getting them a job, encouraging investment in Connecticut and more job creation. So I think with so many people out there, there's been real concern. People are starting to listen that Connecticut's got some issues that we need to address. I believe that some of those are starting to be addressed. One of the issues that's faced Connecticut for quite some time in terms of the way companies look at us is we're not predictable. We're not consistent. We have something on the books, but then the next thing you know, the legislature's proposing to change it.
I agree.
So if it's on the books, how can you rely on it? I think that message is finally starting to get across. We're very fortunate. We've got a tax committee at CBIA that's got some great people, but they're making decisions about where to relocate facilities. And they took the time to go up to the legislature on several occasions with me this past year and sit down with legislators and talk to them about how those investment decisions are made. I think it's the first time that a lot of legislators ever heard it. Shame on us for not better educating them in the past, but we all as business people need to continue to reach out to legislators because they can't make good decisions without that basic information. And it's incumbent upon us that we reach out and share that.
Bonnie Stewart, thank you so much. You know something, Bonnie? If you're inclined, I'd love to have you come back, in a couple months and have you back on the show. You've shared so much great information. This half hour has flown by. Now, before we let you go, again, if any of our viewers and listeners want to connect with you specifically or someone on your staff, how would they go about doing that?
You can give us a call at CBIA 860-244-1900, or we've got plenty of information on our website that everybody's welcome to at www.cbia.com. Please call.
Bonnie, thank you so much. Thanks, folks, for tuning in. Thank you, David from Voices.com. Thank you, Brian, for doing a great job of engineering and hosting. And, folks, we will see you next week on Business Buzz.
Fully operational, fully engaged. On the horn. Hartford. OnTheHorn.com.